I had just finished my usual 5 a.m. run with Max, my German Shepherd and closest companion since my final deployment. The air was crisp, the neighborhood still quiet. Max was cooling down by the porch, tail wagging as I unlatched the gate. That's when I saw it. A bright orange notice nailed right to my front door. Not taped. Nailed. Big bold letters at the top. Urgent HOA violation, dangerous animal complaint filed. I scanned it once. Then again. It accused me of harboring a visibly aggressive animal that poses a danger to community residents. It listed 3 alleged complaints, none with names or details, just vague claims of growling, lunging, and unprovoked intimidation. The penalty: immediate compliance or forced removal of the animal within 72 hours. I looked over at Max. He was lying in the shade, calmly licking his paw, then glanced at me like, "We doing breakfast or what?" That's when the heat started rising in my chest, not from anger, but disbelief. Because what the HOA clearly didn't know was this. Max isn't just a dog. He's a U.S. military working canine, honorably retired, trained by one of the toughest handlers the Army ever commissioned. Me. I stood there, the notice fluttering in the morning breeze, rereading the HOA's absurd claims. Max had supposedly lunged at a child, intimidated residents, and acted in a manner consistent with violent canine behavior. It read like a villain origin story. Only problem: none of it was true. Max was trained to sit motionless under gunfire. He could sniff out explosives, follow nonverbal commands, and detect panic in a heartbeat. He had saved more lives in a single deployment than most people could in a lifetime. I checked our camera footage from the past 48 hours. Nothing. No lunges. No incidents. No barking fits. Just Max doing what he always did, patrolling the backyard, sunbathing like a retired king, and occasionally wagging at passing squirrels like they were war buddies. Still, the HOA had stamped their threat with urgency. Failure to comply may result in daily fines, removal by animal control, and formal HOA litigation. Litigation. For Max. My pulse didn't spike. My hands didn't shake. I just folded the paper, patted Max's head, and said, "All right, buddy. They want to fight? Let's show them who they're barking at." Because if they thought a retired canine was dangerous, they were about to meet the military canine trainer who made him that way. Later that afternoon, just as I was cleaning Max's water bowl, I heard the sound every HOA member dreads, the sharp tap-tap-tap of heels on concrete, fast, full of purpose, and completely unwelcome. I turned toward the gate. There she was, Karen Whitmore, HOA president, certified drama magnate, and walking embodiment of misplaced authority. She had a clipboard under one arm and her phone in the other, already recording. "I'm here regarding the complaint about your animal," she said, eyes narrowed at Max, who was calmly lying in the shade, tail gently thumping like he could smell her fear and didn't care. "You mean my partner," I replied. Karen tilted her head. "That's cute. But we've had multiple residents express fear. I've personally observed him pacing aggressively along the fence line. It's intimidating." I gestured toward Max, who hadn't moved an inch. "Pacing? You mean patrolling? He's trained for that. He's a military canine, retired. Controlled. Certified. Probably more obedient than most humans." Karen ignored that entirely. "I don't care what he did in Afghanistan or wherever. This is a family neighborhood. We don't need an attack dog scaring children." I raised an eyebrow. "He hasn't scared anyone." I checked the footage. No incidents, no barking, no threats. She crossed her arms. "Look, you seem like a nice enough guy. But your dog is a liability. Either you muzzle him, crate him indoors, or we'll have to escalate this through proper channels." "Escalate it," I said flatly. "But next time, bring a lawyer instead of a clipboard." Karen scoffed, turned on her heel, and walked away muttering, "Don't say I didn't give you a chance." Max yawned. I smiled. Because she thought this was intimidation. She had no idea what intimidation really looked like. The next morning, I decided to give Karen the benefit of the doubt, one last chance to approach this like adults before she went full clipboard crusader. I knocked on her door around 9 a.m. She opened it with her phone already recording again. "Look, I'm not here to argue," I said calmly. "Just want to clear the air." She didn't say a word, just raised one eyebrow and kept the camera rolling. I held up a folder. Inside were Max's full military records, training certifications, behavior evaluations, and official discharge documents. Not only had he served in 2 deployments, he'd also passed Level 3 K9 Obedience and Advanced Public Temperament Protocol, a course so strict some human soldiers would have failed it. This dog, I said, tapping the folder, has sniffed out IEDs, walked through active fire zones, and stood next to injured children without flinching. He's calm, controlled, and smarter than most HOA board members. Karen didn't even flinch. Military doesn't matter. People here feel unsafe. That's what matters. I narrowed my eyes. So, truth doesn't matter, just feelings? She shifted, arms crossing defensively. Some of us just don't want to live next to something bred for violence. That's when Max padded up beside me and sat, perfectly straight, not a single muscle twitching. I gave him one subtle hand signal. He immediately lay down. Another, he rolled, then sat back up. I snapped once. He looked up, eyes locked on me, not even glancing at Karen. He's not bred for violence, I said. He's trained for precision. You know the difference between a weapon and a warrior? Control. And he's got more of it than any person you find this year. Karen gave a fake smile. Well, we'll see what animal control thinks. She closed the door with that usual Karen flourish. And I stood there thinking, she's not afraid of Max. She's afraid she can't control me. I figured after seeing Max in action and getting a folder thicker than most HOA bylaws, Karen would reconsider her crusade. I was wrong. 2 days later, I got another letter. Certified this time. HOA violation escalation, dangerous animal noncompliance, final warning. Inside, it listed made-up violations like unrestrained military-grade animal, visible intimidation, refusal to muzzle during non-enclosed yard time. There was even a fine, $1,200. I shook my head and chuckled. Military-grade animal? Max was sleeping in the living room next to a chew toy shaped like a taco. Then came the kicker. If violations are not corrected within 48 hours, HOA reserves the right to report the incident to Municipal Animal Control and initiate legal action under our community's safety clause. She really went there. I walked outside and saw Karen 2 doors down, talking to a couple on their lawn. The way she was gesturing toward my house made it obvious. She was rallying her coalition. I waved. She froze, then turned and walked the other way without saying a word. That's when I knew this wasn't about safety. This was about power. She couldn't control me, so she was trying to control the one thing she thought I was vulnerable through, Max. But she forgot something very important. I trained Max, and I've been trained for people exactly like her. If Karen wanted to play games, she just challenged the wrong handler. That evening, I flipped open my laptop and pulled up Max's body cam archives. Yes, my boy was still equipped. Standard for retired service dogs in transitional civilian roles. His collar camera captured every inch of our property during outdoor time. I reviewed the footage from the entire past week. Calm walks, tail wags, no barking, no lunges, no children even in proximity. Just one clip of Karen standing at the edge of the sidewalk taking photos like she was preparing for war. Good. I uploaded it all to a secure drive, then called an old friend, Sergeant Lopez from my K9 unit. We trained together for 5 years and had testified jointly in court for dog behavior cases. He picked up on the second ring. You still have Max? He asked. Still sharp as ever, I replied. I might need you to verify his temperament in a report. I was trying to paint him like Cujo. Say less. I'll have a full temperament cert and character letter by morning. You want sworn statements from his trainers too? Yep. Stack it like a briefing folder. Then I went full prep mode. Printed Max's certifications. Downloaded vet records and city registration. Compiled HOA bylaws, highlighting where they violated protocol. Installed an extra motion-triggered security camera at the front gate. Added a sign. Locked property monitored. Trained K9 on duty, and his handlers even worse. Max, for his part, stretched, yawned, and watched me with sleepy eyes as if to say, You good or you need backup? I scratched his ears. Oh, we're good, bud. Let's give him a master class. 2 days later, just as I predicted, Karen struck again. I was sipping coffee on the porch when I saw her walking past my property, phone in one hand, little dog in the other, and a dramatic limp that hadn't existed the day before. She kept glancing at my house. I leaned against the railing. Morning. She didn't respond. Just shuffled away faster, clutching her arm like it was about to fall off. 1 hour later, I got the call. Hi, this is Officer Reed with Animal Control. We've received a report that your dog bit a resident during an unprovoked incident this morning. We'll need to do a site visit and verify his temperament. I nearly laughed. Let me guess. Karen Whitmore. Silence. Then a quiet, yes, sir. I told the officer I'd be happy to comply, and also informed him that the entire property was under constant video surveillance, including timestamp footage from Max's body cam, the gate cam, and my front porch. Oh, he said. She didn't mention that. Of course she didn't. By the time Officer Reed arrived, I had 3 angles of video loaded and ready. We watched them together. Karen walking by, Max lying on the porch inside the gate, not even standing up. Not a bark. Not a growl. Certainly no bite. As the footage played, Officer Reed rubbed his jaw. She claimed the dog lunged and bit her arm through the fence. Fence is steel mesh. Max never left the property. And if he had lunged, he wouldn't have missed. Reed nodded slowly. I'm going to file this as a false report. You'll get a written confirmation. And I'm flagging her address for review. As he walked away, he paused. Also, sir, thank you for your service. And for raising one hell of a good dog. Max gave him a lazy tail thump from the porch. I gave him a nod. Just doing our job. But Karen, she just kicked a hornet's nest. I didn't wait for Karen to come slinking back with more lies. I beat her to it. That afternoon, I printed a copy of the false report citation Animal Control issued and placed it in an envelope. Along with it, a flash drive containing footage from every single camera angle. I walked right up to her door and rang the bell. She opened it just enough to peer out. You're harassing me, she snapped immediately. I held up the envelope. Actually, this is documentation. A legal courtesy, if you will. Inside, you'll find a copy of your false claim citation, the footage proving you fabricated it, and a notice from my attorney. Her face drained. I kept going. The notice informs you that if you continue to target my property or my dog with malicious or unsubstantiated claims, we'll be filing a civil harassment suit. And believe me, Karen, once I file, I won't settle. She opened the door wider, ready to unleash some speech. I didn't give her the chance. Oh, and one more thing, I said, turning to go. Max didn't bite you, but he is trained to recognize dishonest body language. And he's been watching you since day one. She didn't speak, just stood there, seething. I walked away calmly, leaving the envelope in her trembling hands. By the time I made it to my porch, neighbors from 2 houses down gave me a subtle thumbs up. One of them mouthed, about time. Max sat proudly at my feet like he knew we just won a major battle. Because we had. Karen wanted to scare us with lies. I had facts, footage, and federal-grade obedience on 4 legs. I didn't just want to shut Karen down. I wanted to make sure she never did this to anyone else. So I took it public. I logged into the neighborhood's community app where most of the residents shared announcements, garage sales, and HOA updates, and posted the full story. Not just a rant. A well-structured, factual post titled, Paw Prints Max, Decorated Veteran or HOA Scapegoat. I attached clips from the security footage, the false report citation from Animal Control, a redacted version of Max's military training records, a personal note explaining who Max was, what he's trained for, and how dangerous false claims like Karen's really are. Then I ended with this. If someone with my experience and this level of documented training can be falsely accused and threatened with losing a dog that served his country, then any one of us can. This isn't about Max. It's about abuse of power hiding behind HOA policy. And it needs to stop. I hit post. Within an hour, likes, comments, private messages. Dozens. Then hundreds. Thank you for speaking up. Karen threatened to fine me for my golden retriever barking once. My kids love Max. He always sits when they walk past. This is the push we needed. One comment hit hardest. He fought for our country. She wants to evict him over a rumor? No, not today. By sunset, the HOA's inbox was flooded. Residents were demanding Karen step down, or at minimum, be removed from all safety-related decisions. Max, he didn't seem to notice. He was just lying belly up in the yard, chewing his taco toy. But me. I knew exactly what had just happened. Karen tried to play politics. We answered with truth, and a community finally paying attention. By the next morning, the entire neighborhood was on fire with support. Karen's carefully manufactured authority crumbled in real time. The HOA's official email account sent out a weak, panic message titled, "Clarification regarding recent dog-related incident." It read like a non-apology written in a hurry. The HOA takes all resident concerns seriously and regrets any misunderstanding regarding enforcement. We appreciate community dialogue and are reviewing our policies. Translation: they didn't expect receipts. And they definitely didn't expect someone trained in tactical intel to airdrop evidence on the battlefield. But it was too late. 3 board members resigned that same day, one of whom publicly commented on my post. I was told Max was an aggressive liability. I now realize I was misled. I'm sorry. Even better. Residents started sharing their stories. A woman fined $300 for a wind chime Karen claimed was too reflective. A man who was threatened with a lien over his mailbox color. A retired nurse whose emotional support dog was nearly banned last year because Karen didn't like pit bulls. Turns out, Karen had been on a quiet campaign of control for years. She'd been pushing neighbors around with half-truths, petty rules, and intimidation, counting on them to stay quiet. But now, the neighborhood wasn't just speaking up. They were organizing. A petition to remove Karen from the board hit 50 signatures in the first 12 hours. Residents began demanding bylaw revisions, external audits, and even a full HOA leadership review. Karen tried to respond on the app once. She commented under my post, "This is a coordinated smear campaign by someone with an aggressive dog and a grudge." But the replies shut her down instantly. "Karen, he's a decorated veteran. You made it personal. You picked a fight with a military dog trainer. What did you think would happen? Max has more discipline than this entire board." Karen went quiet after that. But me, I was just getting warmed up. While the HOA scrambled to contain the fallout, I took things a step further. I submitted a formal request for public records relating to Karen's enforcement history, specifically the complaints, fines, and incident reports she had filed during her time as HOA president. What came back was a goldmine. Karen had fined over $40,000 in nuisance violations in under 2 years, issued unilateral warnings with no board approval 67 times, personally filed nearly every dangerous dog complaint in the neighborhood, even ones against puppies. Worse, she was pocketing administrative fees through a contractor address that, after some digging, turned out to be her nephew's landscaping business. Classic misuse of power. Classic HOA corruption. I compiled it all into one tidy report and shared it publicly. No drama, just facts. Subject line: Pattern of abuse, a public record review of Karen Whitmore's HOA presidency. I included white heavy checkmark every citation. White heavy checkmark every overreach. White heavy checkmark a full timeline showing how she weaponized HOA policy to silence and punish residents she didn't like. The response? Explosive. The local news picked up the story. Rolled up newspaper. Retired military K-9 trainer uncovers HOA corruption after dog is targeted by board president. That was it. Karen's time was up. At the emergency HOA meeting called later that week, the board unanimously voted to remove her from all leadership roles. Effective immediately. She tried to protest, claimed she was just enforcing the rules, but the crowd wasn't buying it. One elderly man, Mr. Pendleton, who Karen had fined $500 for hanging a flag, stood and said, "This wasn't about rules. It was about control. And you finally picked the wrong man to bully." Karen left in silence. No clipboard. No snark. Just a woman whose kingdom had finally collapsed. The week after Karen's removal felt like someone had lifted a fog off the neighborhood. Front yards were brighter. Conversations lasted longer. People waved more. Max even got homemade treats dropped off at our door with handwritten notes like, "Thank you for protecting our neighborhood. You and Max remind us what integrity looks like. Please run for HOA president." Seriously, but I didn't need a title. I already had what mattered. Respect earned, not taken. At the next HOA meeting, I stood up not to gloat, but to propose a change. A bylaw amendment. Shield, no animal shall be cited as a safety threat without video evidence or third-party verification from certified authorities. It passed unanimously. Max, of course, slept through the whole meeting, curled under the table, tail occasionally thumping when someone said his name. A month later, a new sign went up at the park entrance. Meet Max, retired military K-9, certified companion, neighborhood hero. Please don't feed him without asking. He already runs the block. Karen moved out quietly soon after. No farewell party. No stage speech. Just a moving truck and silence. As for Max and me, we still do our morning runs. We still keep watch. But now, instead of suspicion or complaints, we're met with smiles, nods, and a lot of good boy Max. He earned that. We both did. Because sometimes justice doesn't come with flashing lights or courtroom drama. Sometimes it comes with discipline, patience, and one perfectly trained dog.